Nikita, if you're watching this, I'd like a new saw. It's fully functioning, but new toys are nice. The most important thing that you want to know when I'm doing these demos is the battery is not installed. So this saw is not energized, so I can get my fingers closer to the blade. So being smart, if you're adjusting this at all, you want to make sure that your battery pack is out, your cord is unplugged, because this is safety and you don't want one of these going off. If you want to be double sure, like if your electrical cord, if you have any doubt, hit the safety and then the trigger to make sure it doesn't go. That's just a stupid check, and stupid checks are wonderful because it keeps all of your fingers attached. So without further ado, little skill saw. There's different settings on here, so that's going to adjust your side. These saws, they're very flexible in how you work with them, and depending on the settings that you're after, you may have different requirements. For a lot of what we do here, it's 90-degree straight cuts. When you have a different miter saw, chop saw, different types of saws, they're not very portable. So these are excellent for going on job sites, cutting out things, because a big bench saw is going to be really heavy and awkward. So really nice compact kit. It's just a wonderful piece. The key with these battery operated ones is you want a pretty fresh blade. This one's been through the ringer. I was cutting some PVC pipe with it, very versatile. I could take it out to job site, cut a PVC pipe with it, but the downside with it is the blades, because they're so small, they don't have the teeth, so they don't have the longevity. They have guards on them, all that. This blade needs to be replaced. Usually, they come attached with keys from factory. It's not something you buy after. And then with this key, you just put it in. Oops. This one, this is the blade lock. So this blade is free spinning right now, but if I press the blade lock, they're all different with different models, but you want to be looking for something that's going to stop it. Just right there, it just clicked in place. So now the blade is locked, it's not rotating. Now we can take our key. It goes opposite of the tooth. So this can kind of come undone. Put our guard up. Put our guard up and the blade pops off. We can swap a new blade in there really easily. It's not meant to be difficult. On these ones, the other important setting is going to be your depth setting. There it is. So your depth setting on this saw is set up here. So if I undo this, now the blade can go in or out of the apparatus. So if you're trying to hit certain depths or different heights of your cuts, you adjust that, see where the saw comes out, tighten it, and then you're ready to go with your new settings. Again, to operate this one, you need to press the safety on right above the trigger, and then you pull the trigger to operate it. Second hand spot, because you want two hands and a firm grip on it. So I'm not going to power it up, and it's in pieces right now, but that's the general overview. All the saws will have a guard on them. They will have an angle setting. They will have a depth setting, and they will have a blade lock on them. They might be in different spots, but they all should have those basic features. So unlike our skill saw, this is a jigsaw, and this one's quite different because it's a corded application rather than a battery pack. So Jigsaws are pretty versatile. They're a lovely machine. I've cut out different things when I couldn't bring a handsaw in. The problem with handsaws is sometimes I can't physically get the blade into the area because it's such a tight opening. The problem with a handsaw like this is it's physically too big to have a precise cut in here. So when I have this little guy, it's much more flexible. I can go at any kind of angle in here. So purpose-built tool for the application. I can't get a nice cut in here if I tried. So even with a smaller blade, the apparatus is so big I can't even get it in the hole. So knowing your tools, knowing their strengths and weaknesses is really key to good woodworking. Like the skill saw, this also has a key in place, so if I wanted to change the blade, it can. This one has a normal trigger. For some people, skill saws are turned on quite a bit, so this actually has like a cruise control. So you'd press the button and then you'd press the trigger, and then that's going to allow the trigger to stay in a spot. Again, so that's engaged right now and my fingers aren't on it. That would be off. So that's like your cruise control for this one. Again, every tool is going to have different features, but this one is set up that way. Most jigsaws have an adjustment for the blade angle, and this is going to determine on what material you're cutting. These can be used for metal, aluminum, steel. This one has a wood blade for wood application. So with us, we might want the angle back to not have tear out when we're cutting the wood, so that we're not chipping the wood as we're cutting it through. Whereas in steel, you might not care. So you'll have a different blade setting on different angles for that reason. Just like the skill saw, this can be set up on an angle, and the adjustment on this one is right on the bottom. You take the screw, you undo it, and then the table will rotate side to side, so we could get a 45-degree angle on this quite easily if we wanted to. So with these tools, they're a little different, but they all have the same principles. You can set your angle, you can set up a couple of key features, and getting to know your tool is the best advice that I can give you. So these are my two main saws, and again, this is purpose-built for the objective of doors and doors alone. So this bench is perfectly set up. They have little drain holes so that if I have any grit, my piece is going to remain flush on here. I've added a block to it because when this drops down, the piece, if I were cutting a piece of jam right now, the angle on the back doesn't allow for a flush cut. So when I added this block in here, it allows me to have a perfectly flat cut all the way through. So again, this is a purpose-built modification for our application. There's two types of saws. One is just a chop saw where it comes straight up and down and that's it. These ones also slide forwards and back. So the important thing that we look for is these sliding saws because we're trying to make flat cuts. That being said, this saw can go up and down quite a bit. So these are outfitted with an adjustment right here. It's a little push down lever, and that will allow the saw to remain at one height throughout the whole cut. So I can keep flat, level cuts throughout my whole pass. It's an adjustable setting. Again, because I'm doing doors, this setting is fixed for what I need. All of these saws do have an angle finder. So I can push them, lock them in place, move them wherever I please. I can slide them. They're great for straight cuts. If you're looking for a complex cut or a router or like those hinge cuts that I was making, this is definitely the wrong piece. But if you wanted that square cut, these are awesome. Very versatile, but not very portable. So you'll typically see these on job sites on the back of guys' tailgates because they can't pick them up very easily. They're quite heavy. You can swap the blades out just like the skill saw earlier. They're really a beautiful piece of machinery, but you need to have the finesse with them to get a really good result. Your number one indicator of if your blade needs to be changed is going to be chip out on the wood. So this is what I mean by chip out. So it's all these little fuzz pieces coming out. This was cut on this saw going this way. Because the blade is going into the wood, I actually have a really clean cut on my edge. It's on the back side of when the saw went through, that's where the chip out occurs. If I was getting this chip out on the front, that would be a really bad sign and definitely need to change the blade. But this is for demonstration purposes. The saw's blade's been on here for about 2 months. We're not going to run it much longer, so we need to get this out so we can get pretty wood to our customers.
Now, is it possible to sharpen them, or is it not worth your time?
So, depending on your situation, we do have our blades sent out for sharpening. You can go to a big box store and buy new blades. Eventually though, the blades get filed and shaved so much that you need to buy new blades. Blades are just like anything else out there. There's good ones and bad ones. With the supply shortage, like everyone's dealing with, this is a medium quality blade. There's one out there, it's a red blade, and that's considered a much better brand, but they're not as serviceable, so we can't send those out for sharpening because it's a different carbide tip on them. So the previous blade that I had on here was a blade that I had in storage before, and it was about a $300 blade. I sent it out for sharpening, which is about $30, $40. So for that blade, it's well worth sharpening. This blade was about $50. So depending on your situation, $40 for sharpening or $50 for a new blade. You know, again, if you're a home do-it-yourselfer, you might want to buy a blade, and it's not worth the hassle. It just depends on your situation. So Nicole asked for this piece of wood to be cut to 12 inches. So we're going to take our tape, we're going to measure.
Why? Why did I ask for it to be cut to 12 inches?
So we marked it there. And then one way of doing it is you put hands off the trigger. So you can put your blade right up close to it, and you can wiggle it all the way through until you get close to it. That's what some people do, and it's not what I do. The thing that I do is I actually look through the guard to see where the blade is going to drop. So this is where the saw mark is. And what I do as a person cutting wood is I actually look through the guard to see the dot below there. And the camera, because it's a Apple, doesn't know how to focus.
It just focused.
So
look at that.
you can see the reflection on the blade with the mark, and as it's getting closer, that's where we take it. So with your eye, you want to get it right to that section, and then you make your cut. And that's how I make my cuts, is by looking through the guard, not by wiggling the board closer to the blade. So this is the accuracy that someone would should be using. So looking through the guard rather than looking to the side of the saw. So my hand was as far away while holding it to the blade, and when I make my cut, I was letting the saw do the work. I wasn't forcing it down, I wasn't overworking the saw. And 12 inches.